Good evening, my YouTube viewers. It's Crystal here. I wanted to make you another video tonight, and this video that I'm going to make you is going to be on the Titanic dataset, and I'm going to give you an exploratory data analysis. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the raw data. This is the data that I have downloaded off a website. And so you've got the passenger ID, which is 1 to 892, I believe it is. You've got survived, which is either a 0 or 1, a P class, which is 1, 2, or 3, the name, the sex, the age, the SIB spouse. That means that indicates if they were traveling with somebody, a sibling or a spouse, a pair child, that's a parent child, that indicates if they were a parent or a child, ticket number, the fare, the cabin number, and where it embarked. The bark was Southampton, I think C was Chalfont, and Q stands for something, but I don't remember what Q stands for, but it embarked off of 3 locations. So that is your Titanic data set. Now this is actually the training data set, because the actual data set, you have a training set and a testing set. So the training set, I think, is 891 rows of data, and then the testing set is like 400 rows of data, 400 and something rows of data, and combined it's 1,300 and something rows of data. So the only data set that I was able to download was the training set. It wasn't the complete set. It's because I have worked on the Titanic data set in Kaggle. And so that's why I know that you have a training set and a test set. So we're only going to be talking about the training set, not the test set, because I haven't got the test set. And we're doing an exploratory data analysis. So on this exploratory data analysis, when I downloaded the data set in Excel, I also got some questions to answer about it. So I'm going to go ahead and answer these questions and as an exploratory data analysis. They said, what's the survival rate of passengers of the Titanic? And if you come over here, we've got a formula. It's the sum Titanic B2 over B892, and that is the survivors over count A, B2 over B92. So that's 38.38%. So I asked how many, just as additional information that wasn't that question, what was the total survivors of the Titanic? And so that was sum Titanic raw data B2 to B892. The total survivors was 342. So 38.38% of the 891 people survived. And that's just on the training set. It's not on the test set. And see, what's the average age of the passengers of the Titanic training set? Again, so we do average, and then we go, so the Titanic raw data, F2 to F892, and the average age was 29.7 years. And so that's what the average age was. Then it asked the question, what is the proportion of male passengers in the Titanic? So the males were 64.76%, and we asked the question, count if Titanic E2 to E892 is male, and that's over count A, E2 to E892, so that was 64.76%, and then we asked the same question, the same data, but we ask if it's a female, and it's 35.24. So we're going to say that approximately 2/3 of the population was male and 1/3 of the population was female. And we total that, and that gives you 100%, because obviously I wanted to check my work. And the fourth question was, what class of passengers of the Titanic had the highest survival rate. So I did first, second, and third, and then I totaled it, and the total is 38.38%, which is the same here. So that tells me that I got my figures correct. So the 15% of people in first class survived, and so we use count ifs. Titanic C2 to C892 is 1, and then Titanic raw data B2 to B892 is 1. So that's count ifs. So that means if they were in the first class or the second class. And I notice here that I put the 1 in quotation marks, but I probably didn't necessarily have to do that. I probably could have just put a 1 there. So let's just see what happens if we go in here. Let's just see what happens. So, and then the second class is exactly the same thing, but instead of 1, you're going to put 2 in there. And then the third class, exactly the same thing, but instead of 2, you're going to put 3 in there. So 15% of people in first class survived, 9% of people in second class survived, and 13% of people in third class survived. But we need to put this in perspective. So you need to say, what is the percentage of each class in the Titanic? So we've got 24.24% of people were in first class, and 15.26% of those people survived. So that's going to tell you that that 3/5 of the people in first class survived. In second class, 20.65% of the people were in second class, and 9.76 survived. So that's going to tell you that just slightly less than half of the people in second class survived. But in third class, 55.11% were in third class, but 13% of those people survived. So that's less than a third, definitely less than a third of those people survived. I would say, we'll say 13 times 3 is 39, plus another 13 is 52. So we'll say a quarter of the people in third class survived. So that's why it's important to find out exactly what percentage of people were actually in each class, and then when you compare that to the survivors, then you'll know the people in the first and the second class were more likely to survive, whereas the people in the third class weren't. And then they didn't ask any questions about males and females in this, but if they asked the question like, what was the percentage of males that survived, and the percentage of females that were survived, you see more females and children would have survived than the men, because when they were getting people off the ship, they were putting the women on the boats. So more women and children survived the Titanic disaster than men. And so I could actually go ahead and expand this analysis and ask the question about survivors, because what is the proportion of male and female passengers in the Titanic? So you know the proportion here. So this one, count ifs. So what I might do after I finish this video, what I'll do is I'll go ahead and ask about the percentage of the survivors in the Titanic for men and women. But I know from past experience that more women and children survived than men. So the next thing that we're going to ask is what is the distribution of the passengers of the distribution of fare of the passengers of the Titanic dataset. So you can see the distribution of the fares. And then I ask about the range of the fare. So the minimum fare was 0, the maximum fare was 512, and so the range was 512. That's your range. So that just gives you your distribution, and you can see that this is right skewed. So since we got a little bit of time, we can say here, so we can say male, female, and some. So what we'll do, just do a little bit of copy and paste. So that was for count if males and so it's going to be count ifs. And then obviously it's a little bit more difficult for me to do this. So we'll say count ifs survive. So that's going to be B2 to 892. I think it's 892. And then, because it's a count ifs, and then it's going to be 1, and then it's going to be E2 to E892, and it's going to be E, male. And then count A, B2 to B892, I believe it's 892. And we hit enter, and it just says, okay, so obviously I've done something wrong. Count ifs Titanic, B2 to B892, so we'll just X out of this. And then it's done it again. B2, B892, 1. C2, and I think it's C, but I'll double check that. I'll go ahead and put the code in here. C892. try it again. So, said count ifs. So we had B and C over here. So B is going to be 0 or 1. And E was going to be your sex. So you can see how time consuming it is to enter code in here. So 12.23% of the men. And then we're going to copy this. We're going to paste it. And then we're going to say B2, B892. And it's going to be 1. And it's going to be E2 to E892. It's going to be female. B2, B892. So 12.23. And then what we're going to do here is we're going to sum it. Should be 38.38%, and you can see that it's 38.38%. So you can see that of the survivors, 12.23 were men, whereas 64.76 were men on the Titanic. So we're going to say at least about 1/5 of the men survived the Titanic, whereas with the females, it was 26.15% survived out of the 35.24%. So that would be 3/4 of the females survived. So 1/5 of the men survived and 3/4 of the females survived. And we could do a little bit more as well, because find out how many children, say how many people under the age of 18. And so that would take a little bit of time, because what you would have to do is you would have to say if the age was less than 18, they were a child, and if it was over 18, they were an adult. But I'm not going to do it in this particular analysis, although I could do it, and I may decide to do it at some time. But you know now that, which is what I already had said, was that women and children were more likely to survive than men. And so we proved it by just looking at the list of passengers on the Titanic. But that's just the training set, it's not the testing set. But that gives you an idea of the survivors. So, I mean, what we could do is I think that's going to be a little bit more difficult for me to do. I'll have to do that later. And the reason why is because I would have to say everybody less than 18 was considered a child and everybody above 18 was an adult. And I think I would have to sit down and think about the code. It's not something that I can just do really quickly off the top of my head, because I've been talking for 20 minutes on this exploratory data analysis already, but I will do it when I finish it. So I've covered everything that I wanted to cover. In fact, I covered some more, because we talked about the male, we separated the survivors in the male and females, so you could see for yourself that not very many men survived the sinking of the Titanic. So thank you so much for watching my video. If you like my video, please like and subscribe, and I look forward to making another video for you in the near future.